Hey, it's Kaero. Welcome back to the channel. I have forgotten what part this is, but it is part 17 or something like that of generating and rating cards using Urza's AI. 10 is the absolute best. Broken, goes in every deck. 0, absolutely unplayable. So let's rate these cards. If you like the video, please hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. Let's get into it. Okay, first up we have Bond of Doom. 1 blue, 1 generic. It's instant as a kicker of 3 generic counter target spell. So automatically already just a 2 mana counter spell. 1 blue instead of 2 blue. That's great. If the spell was kicked, it deals damage equal to the highest mana value of the grounded creature you control. So this just means, I guess, any creature without flying. I'm not sure that grounded exists as a keyword in Magic the Gathering, but let's say that you have flying creatures. Those aren't grounded, so the opposite of that must be a grounded creature. This is absolutely insane, if that's true, which it's not true. But it's still a 2 mana counter spell. It only requires 1 blue, even if you don't pay the kicker. So I think this is a 9 out. This is probably a 10 out of 10. Next up is Nightmare Hounds. 1 black, 3 generic for a zombie dog. So I really like that the creature type, first of all, the AI made Nightmare Hounds a zombie dog. That's fantastic. It's a 3/3 creature. It has Death Touch. So, yeah, it's probably like a 4. What's the flavor text? There's no use in your dying when I return to haunt you. So, if you die, he haunts you still? That's kind of like a bad gig, right? That's relentless haunting, my guy. Rhesus. Like usually, if you die, you come back and haunt somebody. They're gonna die and you're gonna haunt them again? Oh, come on, man. This card's a 3, probably. But like, I admire your persistence, Rhesus. Next up is Mizix Kowatlikan. 1 red, 1 generic for a human wizard. Power and toughness 1/1. You pay 1 red and tap it. Mizix Kowatlikan deals 1 damage to target creature. This card's not very good. If it pinged an opponent or any target, it would be better. But I think it's probably like a 3. What's the flavor text? There are few things more annoying than a failing to comprehend a theory. Okay, sure. I can see that being annoying. If you can't comprehend a theory, then yeah, I'm annoyed. Okay, probably a 3. Okay, so here we have our first black card, Devastation. I think this is probably already a card, right? There has to be a black card called Devastation. 1 black, 4 generic, it's sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice X creature cards. Devastation deals X damage to each creature. Okay, so I think where you use this is you have a lot of little 1/1 tokens or 0/1 tokens or whatever, and you have a huge creature, like say a 7/7 or an 8/8, maybe you're playing like Golgari, and you deal X damage to the entire board, and then your creature survives. But you have to, this isn't like a board wipe, you have to have things to sacrifice to it, otherwise it just doesn't do anything. The flavor text is some call it a thunderbolt, but many call it a weapon. Okay, indeed. In the right deck, this could be cool, but when you have something that's tunable already, like Meat Hook Massacre, whenever you compare this card to it, not very good. Requires too much setup. Like a 3. Next card we have is just simply AVTs in all capital letters, and it has an apostrophe before the S, meaning that it's like a possessive. So it's AVTs something or other. It's 1 blue, 1 generic for a human wizard. It's a 1/3, not bad stats for a 2-drop. When Visionary Machine enters the battlefield, you may draw a card. So this card's not called Visionary Machine. So what does Visionary Machine do? Well, you know the game. Now we're going to put Visionary Machine into Urza's AI and see what it does. And then we'll rate this card based on what a Visionary Machine does. The flavor text here is the machine does not need to speak for fear of what it sees. So when Visionary Machine enters the battlefield, you may draw a card. This is a 2 mana, 1/3. Let's see what Visionary Machine does. Okay, so here's Visionary Machine. It's an artifact creature. It's a golem. It costs 4 generic mana. It's a 3/4, and when Visionary Machine enters the battlefield, draw a card. So this flavor is really cool. So we have AVTs, which I can maybe assume that those are that card's initials, maybe. And then it's AVT's Visionary Machine. So you put AVT out, and then whenever the machine comes in, you draw a card off of that card. And then whenever the machine comes in, it gets to draw you a card also. Let's also take a minute to appreciate the AI's creativity here, or spot on accuracy with the flavor. Because the card is called Visionary Machine. If we break down Visionary in terms of Magic the Gathering, that's usually associated with card draw or extra turns or something, excuse me, something like that. And the machine is obviously because it's a golem. So the fact that you get to draw a card off of it is really cool flavor. And the flavor text is, some machines have utensils that are too heavy to carry. Uh, I mean, honestly, rating this seems superfluous at this point because we just appreciate the flavor. But I mean, if we were going to play with these in a practical setting, it's unrealistic to have AVTs out and then try to find another card, which you maybe have one of if you're playing Commander, or four of in a different format, and then put those in. I guess if AVT is tutored for it or something, that would be one thing, but it's like pretty weak. It's probably like three. Next up, we have Rise of the Necromancer. 1 black, 2 generic for sorcery. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. This art is fantastic. The card is just like meh, right? Whatever. Usually, you would want to pay 1 for this type of effect in the form of Thoughtseize or Duress. It is cool that you can choose any non-land card, so it doesn't have to be like specifically this instant or sorcery or non-creature card either. But it's just too expensive. I didn't think that would be seeing much play. Probably like a 2 or a 3. What's the flavor? A person born under the last year of the reign of Phyrexian civilization. She also serves the multiverse of the eponymous cinder spreading cult. So the thing that I really like about this card, though, is the art is fantastic. We have this, presumably the Necromancer here in the left part of the art, and it looks like the Necromancer is gazing down into this like hellscape or some sort of underworld. Something kind of reminds me of like the Theros situation. And then we have 3 other cloaked figures down there. Presumably the Necromancer summoned them from the dead, so those are probably undead, and they're wearing the same cloaks that the Necromancer is. And then we see here in the flavor that the Necromancer serves the multiverse, so presumably in a good way, of the eponymous cinder spreading cult. So maybe this is the cinder spreading cult, and they are spreading cinders because stuff's on fire, yo. It's a 2 or a 3, but the art and the flavor are very cool. Next, we have Torpid Holdback. It's 1 blue, 1 generic for a zombie. It's a 1/1. Whenever Torpid Holdback attacks, put target creature card from a defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It costs 2, and it's a 1/1. It doesn't even have to deal damage to the other player to do this. Yes, on turn 2, the likelihood of them having a card in their graveyard is pretty slim. So this is something that you don't want to be throwing out on turn 2 and just have it get killed. It dies to literally anything. But the value here is actually really good. If you have a way to protect this, if you're playing control, you're removing creatures, then you get Torpid Holdback on the field, maybe turn 3 or turn 4, you have counter spells in hand, or you have things like slip out the back or phase out spells or something like that. And you just keep attacking with this and getting the things that you removed every single time. Pretty good. The flavor text. It would be so easy if you weren't for that horrible thing called time. Gravestorm the Great. Yeah, everything would be pretty easy if we had unlimited time. Gravestorm, you're very wise. That's why you're great. This card's the 9, I think. It dies really easily, but you can build around this to get some absurd things. Actually, versus control, it's actually kind of bad. So versus aggro mid range, it's really good. Next up is Magma Champion. 1 red, 2 generic for a human shaman. 2/2 for 3, not horrible. 1 red, 1 generic, and tap Magma Champion. Creatures you control get +1/+0 till end of turn. So this is a typical red effect. This would be very strong if it didn't have to tap. The fact that it does have to tap means that it won't be able to attack and do this also. You're going to have other things attacking to get the +1/+0. So this could be useful in like a red or a Boros white-red go-wide deck with a lot of tokens. that just wants to smash. But we do have things out there like certain tribal lords and things that usually just pump everything by +1/+1 permanently for 2 to 3 mana. So this feels a little bit underpowered. If this was in limited in like a really go wide, it had a lot of support for a lot of cheap creatures, I could see this being playable. What's the flavor? She breathes in the face of those she subjects to her will. I gotta tell you, I don't like the idea of somebody breathing in my face. That seems like there are a lot of things that I would rather somebody do to me aggressively than to aggressively breathe into my face. So that feels threatening to me, which I guess is the point. Um, I don't know. Limited, it's probably like a 4 or a build around 5 or 5, something like that. I just don't think it would see constructed play. They're way better cards. Here we have Pillage of Invention, 1 blue, 1 generic for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 till end of turn. This feels very odd to see this in blue. The color pie for this would usually be red, possibly, if not red, maybe green or white. Maybe white. Blue, this seems very off. What's the flavor text? My failure was merely the inevitable result of a long and productive study of molecular biology. That seems very blue to me. And that was said by Pillage of Invention. So this is either a person and an instant, or its Pillage of Invention is a sentient set of machinery that can also speak, which is actually scarier. Actually, does the art looks like it kind of has like some faces or something in there. If you squint, you can see like in the middle to the right there looks like sort of like a face or something. Really weird. And to the left, it looks like a fan. Okay, so yeah, this card's a 1, but I mean, it's really interesting. Really, I think the AI did a good job on this. This is an interesting review. That concludes this chapter of generating and rating cards with Urza's AI. Kind of sounded like William Shatner there for a second. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up for me. It helps me to bring more content and supports the channel. Subscribe for future episodes as well as other content related to Magic the Gathering. And until next time, have fun.